Welcome to the Washdown podcast, episode 149. And today's guest is Ronnie Dennison. Now, Ronnie has been a volunteer firefighter for the past 22 years. And, we decided to have him on because that's something that really doesn't get the light shed on it as much as it should, because a vast majority of firefighters in this country are actually volunteers. So we had a great time making this episode. I hope you enjoy it. So here you go, the Washdown podcast, episode 149 with guest Ronnie Dennison.
All crews stand by for emergency traffic. All crews stand by for emergency traffic.
That's the unit with the mayday. Go ahead with your traffic.
Now I'm hot.
I remember when I first got on Adrian's department. So I had basically the summer before college. I was originally wanting to go into law enforcement, and Gary was like, "Well, why don't you just come, volunteer for the fire department for the summer and get a sense of what it's like, to kind of be a first responder." And I was like, "Okay."
I remember.
And I did, and I fell in love instantly. That next summer, I took my EMT course, and I never looked back. But I remember one time we were there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got a city council meeting tonight." It's like, "Why you got to go to that?" He's like, "I'm the fire chief. You got to play politics." I'm like, "What do you mean politics? Like, what politics is in the fire service?" And he was like, "Oh, buddy, you're gonna learn." And I sure did. I sure as hell did.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, and we've talked about it before, of the one thing that shouldn't be in public safety is politics. 100%. And it is the one thing that drives this industry more than anything else, because we have to have funding. So, but on that note, Ronnie, as a volunteer department, how do you guys handle that?
Well, I will say right now we have, I feel, a fantastic city council that actually supports us. They've always been pretty supportive, but in years past, we've had, some struggles.
Yeah.
But our chief is very good. He will fight for us until he can no longer fight, and he generally doesn't. When we go to the council, and so you got to understand, we're essentially two different departments. We're a rural department and we're a city. So the rural department has a board, and then the city has the city council. Same firefighters, same fire station. It's essentially just separated by funding. So when Gary goes, or our chief goes and asks for something, he's not, there's a good reason for it. He doesn't go ask for frivolous stuff. So usually he does his homework, and he's got his, reasons why this is beneficial, why it'll help keep the citizens safe, help keep the firefighters safe. So usually we don't generally have an issue on the political side of things. So we're pretty fortunate.
Yeah, that's it's not how it is everywhere. But James, can you do a quick search and see what the percentage is of volunteer / paid?
In the United States?
In the United States.
Yeah.
So, because I've been something that I've actually kind of been reading up on. And
I think it's like 70% of firefighters are volunteer.
Yeah. And especially on the East Coast. And I was reading this article, and I think it was in Fire Engineering.
69% giggity.
Yeah. Fire Engineering or Firehouse Magazine or something like that. And the youngest guy on the volunteer department was like in his 60s. Yeah. And there was only like,
I feel great.
Yeah. Well, but they said, hey, we need to get like some new blood in here, because these are the people that are showing up like It's not just grandpa showing up to your house fire. It's great grandpa showing up to your house fire. And it's like, that's a problem.
It is.
So how do we get some new blood in there?
That's a tough one. I mean, we've got some young guys, but we've got some older guys too, you know, and I think as much as I hate to say it, you know, a lot of it has to do with the generations. You know, I've seen it in my normal job over the years that younger guys don't like to work as much. I mean, I don't know how else to say it nicely. And I think it goes, and not to get off on a strange tangent, but a lot of it goes to, I feel we've pushed for so many years, college, and now we're seeing a struggle even on the trade side of there's such a shortage. I mean, if you want to go into a trade, and I consider, you know, I seen it with my son in the fire service, you can almost go anywhere, and you can be hired, you know, because there is such a shortage, and you're losing the youth and transferring knowledge. You know, I seen it when I was in the elevator trade, you know, companies wouldn't, when I got in, I got sent to do all kinds of things and I learned the trade. But then as time went on, all the companies cared about was pushing funding. You know, we got to make as much profit. So, you know, have the young guy just get him lined out and do specific things all day long, and he never gets to learn the trade. So now we're running into issues when we got guys that we need to roll in to start repairing and servicing elevators. They don't know anything because they were never taught it. And I feel it's the same thing in the fire service. You know, volunteer, I think, is probably a little different than career, but we've got several young guys in our department, and they're eager and they're willing, but it's still a struggle.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that the knowledge transfer because you're not having people stay as long, right? So you're trying to at least pass on a little bit of knowledge,
right?
But they have to be willing to receive it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because there are things that we're losing daily with people retiring, and it's like, all right, well, that's 30 years of knowledge of the fire service gone now,
right? And
you're never going to get all of their knowledge that they've learned,
right?
You know.
Well, and they can teach you all day long in the academy, or you know, when you go and when I took my fire 1 and 2 class, they taught us all this stuff. But let's face it, it's not reality. No. It's not, you know, when you can go into the burn building and see how a fire burns and see how to put it out. But when you walk into your first house on fire, building on fire, there's nothing other than the heat maybe that's probably similar.
Well, I mean, I think we got to focus too, like it's a cultural problem we're battling, not only in the fire service, but in the trades. Our younger generations are instant gratification. Not self-centeredness as in taught to be selfish, but we're not teaching servant leadership, and we're not teaching self-sacrifice, and we're not teaching participation in a cause anymore.
Right.
And, you know, at least in our department, what used to be 3,000 and 4,000 person processes for 25 spots is now 300 for 100. It's not the same anymore. It's not the post 9/12/2001 was one of the best days in this country.
I 100% agree with that.
And that thought process is just gone now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's like you said you know, we pushed college for years and years and years at the expense of the trades, the fire service, the law enforcement side. And it's 100% accurate. They can teach you all of this stuff in fire academy and the police academy and all this stuff, but you need that real world experience. That's like exactly why you might go to college and get a degree, but you can't get hired anywhere because you don't have any experience.
Right.
Because that level of, you know, knowledge or whatever, that's the very basic, the base level of knowledge that you need to have to start learning.
Right.
the job or the trade.
I saw a video on TikTok just yesterday. It was this like 9-year-old kid helping out his dad in like a diesel mechanic shop, and he's covered in grease, and all the comments were like, that's how you get 20 years experience by the age of 21.
Have you seen that kid he's on Instagram. He's on the East Coast somewhere. He's like 11 or 12, and he's legit building engines and like restoring cars, and like I think his name's like Gino, or it's some Italian name, I don't know, but like he is legit doing it himself too.
He's been in the garage since he was 2 years old.
Yeah,
and I guarantee some company's still going to be like, "Oh, you don't quite have enough experience that we're looking for."
I don't think he's going to be hurting for money. He's got that social media money coming in. He'll be fine.
Right.
So, which unfortunately is one of those things of that's what people think nowadays is, oh, I'm going to be a social media influencer and, I'm going to make my money that way, which is great, but it's no different than, whenever I was fighting. Yeah. Okay. I can go to the UFC and I'll get $1 million or whatever. Well, no, the reality is that's just like pro football. It's just like pro basketball. You're talking about the top half of a percent that make that money. Like everybody else, you get 5,000 to show up and you get 5,000 if you win, and you might fight 3 times a year if you're lucky.
Oh, wow.
So let's say
he never would have made it because I beat his ass all the time anyway.
That's why I'm not a fighter.
So, but I mean,
I don't like being punched.
Yeah.
But,
you got to be able to dodge. I was not great at dodging.
That's why it's so fucking ugly.
But I mean, you're looking at, okay, 20 grand a year, if you're winning.
Right.
And then, okay, well, that doesn't even cover 6 months of gym fees, nutrition, training partners. Okay, well, what am I going to look? Well, you better have a full-time job. Well, I can't have a full-time job if I want to, get to the level that I want to be at.
Right.
Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Not be punched.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Well, that's why I stopped. Just like, I'm done. It's enough's enough.
My kids beat me up bad enough.
Well, Ronnie, brother, my old friend, welcome to the Washdown podcast.
I'm honored to be here. I'm a little shocked, but honored to be here.
Why? Because it's such a smooth running machine?
Yes, that, and I've never imagined being invited to a podcast, so here we are.
Well, I mean, you got valuable stuff to say, man.
Well,
you got a valuable perspective.
I wish you said the same thing about me.
Well, say something smart once in a while, and I will say that.
Well, how do you even know I'm going to say something smart before
you get grace? I don't get grace.
Big chance with me. I'm just saying.
So, but here's the deal, and this is like I told you why I wanted to talk to you is you work at a volunteer department.
Yep,
it's different. Like what you see and what you do. I mean, not totally different from what we do, right? I mean, you're still running car wrecks. You're still going to house fires and all this stuff.
Yep.
The difference is you're legit going to your neighbors.
Absolutely.
And those are the people that you're running. Almost every call is somebody that you know. So how do you deal with that? How do you handle that? And what do you guys have in place to,
and I don't know how in depth we want to get on this, but I still remember to this day my first fatality. And I don't know if it's okay to.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So it was, I was new, and I got on the department. I don't know, in 2002. So I graduated in 96. So I was like 22 or something, 23. I don't remember. And first car wreck, we got dispatched, and I rode out on the engine, and I was pretty new, probably a couple months, I'd guess, into it. And me and the driver, we get out, we park along the highway. It was a car over an embankment into a creek. And we park along the highway, and our rescue truck was already ahead of us, and they were on the other side of the bridge. So we get out and walk up to it, and we get to the embankment, and I'm standing there looking, and there's a car, and the door's open. I don't know. At this point, we hadn't been told it was a fatality or anything. So and I think at that point, maybe had come over the radio or something. And I asked the driver, I said, well, where's the occupant? And he's like, look in the water next to the car, and there's a person there. So I'm like, oh crap, what the heck have I gotten into? And then so we go down there and we pull this girl out, and it was a girl I went to school with. It's like, holy crap, what on earth? So that one kind of shook me a little bit. And then you kind of get over it, and that was the first time, and it's like, okay. And then time goes on, and I don't really know how the best way to describe how, if I really handle the calls right, I don't know. But I've put a lot of faith in the good Lord that, and I've always had the mentality of, when it's our time, and there's nothing we can do about it. But the one that really got me, we had a structure fire where we lost a little girl in, and that one was pretty rough. And I don't remember the timing, but it wasn't an awful long time after that we ran mutual aid with our neighboring department, and they had a father and infant pass in the fire, and we were on scene there, and it wasn't much. Few months after that, I developed anxiety, or I'd say it's anxiety. I don't know if it was, they classified it as anxiety, but it's like, I began to panic with my kids, of something was going to happen with my kids. And, and it was the weirdest thing is I get up in the morning, I was fine. I drive to work, I was fine. I was fine all day at work. And when I started home, the drive home, it started to hit, and I'd panic, and I feel like I was having a heart attack, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I stuck it out for a week, and I'm like, what in the hell is wrong with me every day? And I'm like, and I get home, and my first fear, because I had an infant son at that time, or he was probably one-ish, I guess, at that time. And at dinner time, I dwelled on that he was going to choke, and I don't know why it was, but that's what started it. So I just literally sit there and stare at him while he ate. I'm like, this is jacked up.
It sounds a little bit like PTSD.
Well, and I'm sure it was, but yeah. So I fought it for a week, and I went to the doctor. I'm like, dude, what's wrong? And he's like, well, you probably got anxiety and blah, 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 and put me on medicine. And I'm like, well, this is jacked up. I never wanted to be on medicine. Never thought, and I never really put two and two together until I got, time into it. I'm like, what? It's probably the shit we see.
Yeah.
And what year was that, roughly?
I was trying to think about that, but it had to been, so it was my youngest, and he was probably a year old. He was born in 2007, so it's probably been around 2000. I think the fatalities happened in
that was
2007 or 2008.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I know in college, for me, for football, we didn't even start concussion testing until 2010, and that was when we finally even recognized, like, something might be happening with our brains here. And that was just when we realized it was physical contact doing it, let alone the stuff we actually just physically see.
Right. Yeah, it's and this was a worry I had when my son wanted to get into the fire service. I am worried that something's going to happen, obviously run into house fires or whatever, but my fear was the mental health part of it. Because I'm like, we see stuff that no human being should see.
Well,
no doubt about it.
Did you talk to him about that?
I've talked to him until I'm blue in the face. Yeah. And I've told him, talk. Don't hold it in. Don't ever think, I know years past, and Adrian's never been that way. Our chief's been phenomenal about taking care of us. But I know in years past, the old fire service was you got to be tough, suck it up, and I've told my son, I said, don't you ever let anybody tell you to suck it up, because it'll eat you alive. It'll absolutely freaking eat you alive.
It absolutely will.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, and I keep seeing it all over social media. People just keep reposting this bullshit. They say, the average person sees 3 traumatic events in their life. Well, and first responders in the course of their career will see 175. I don't know what fucking number or what department they're getting those numbers for. We see 175 traumatic incidents a year.
Right.
if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's a lot more. And you stack that on top of a 20, 25, 30-year career. I mean, get the fuck out of here, man. Like you have to, the mental health aspect of this career field has been so overlooked for so long, which is why we lead in divorce, alcoholism, drug addiction, suicide.
Yeah.
Like being a first responder, like there's some perks to it, but there's also some really big downside if you let them creep into your life.
Right. And that's one of the reasons when you asked me, I wanted, because I'm, the mental health is huge in my mind, because I've dealt with it, but even that, now that I've got, other than, I've always had a vested interest because I had friends that it involved, but now especially with my son, it's, I don't have an answer to it. I don't know how to answer it other than, find what helps you. And if you try something and it doesn't help you, try something else that doesn't involve drugs and alcohol, because all that does is mask the problem for a little bit, but it creates probably a worse problem.
Yeah. 100% it does.
Yeah.
So,
and us as first responders, we run that stuff every day. So we know what that stuff does. So it's like, don't do it. You know what it's going to do.
yeah, but we also run people who are obese, who won't stop smoking,
Right.
who eat crappy food.
I'm fucking
who
sitting
don't-
right here. Jesus Christ.
You're not smoking though. Well, not
Currently-
smoking a cigarette is what I mean.
Currently, yeah. Sorry, family watching this. I'm a good kid.
Yeah.
You're right. You're 100% right.
So, and it's always, dude, it's like, well, yeah, that for somebody else, that would be, you need to take care of your mental health.
Right.
For somebody else. But I'm good.
Yeah.
Because I'm the person who comes and helps everybody.
Right.
I don't need the help. Like, come on.
Well,
You don't need the help until you're sitting in your bedroom floor with a gun against your head.
right.
Or you're fucking down in a bottle of whatever every day.
Ronnie, something I'm interested too in is like, at least for the career side, we have the, I don't know if we call it a luxury, ability to go back to our station, sit around the kitchen table, talk this stuff out. We don't, we don't have to go home till the next morning. It's different for you. You may have 10 or 15 minutes back at the station, but that kitchen table you're walking back into is your own, with your family sitting in front of it that probably have no idea what the fuck you just did.
Right.
Like, how do you even start to navigate that?
Well, I'd say for years, I didn't talk about it. I obviously didn't want to talk about it with my kids because I didn't want to, I didn't want to involve them in the. Now you got to take into perspective too. We don't see the volume of bad shit like you guys potentially see, or guys in bigger departments that run more higher call volume. But it's still the same when you see a person not well, you see a person not. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think you say dead person,
and-
whatever.
kind of like we talked about you might not run the same volume, but the people that you're running, those people.
Right.
And the chances of us like running somebody that we know, very small in a large metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Now, I've done it a couple times. I ran my father-in-law twice.
Come on.
Well, but my sister-in-law, whenever he was living with her, they lived in my first in district.
I ran his father-in-law too.
Yeah.
Come on.
And well, actually, I guess I ran him way more than that. And then whenever I moved stations and he got into an independent living facility, I ran him multiple times there.
Right.
And I've seen people that I knew in car wrecks, but randomly.
Right.
But I also, for a long time, I worked at a station. I lived less than a mile away.
Right.
So the people that I knew that lived in the area, I had a higher probability of that happening.
Right.
Now, I work all the way across the city as far as you can go. I'm probably not going to see anybody that I know on any of the calls that I run.
Well, and I'd say, on average, and this is just a big guesstimate, but I mean, I'd say 2 out of 3 calls we run is somebody we know, or 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10. I mean, yeah, especially if you've been in the community most of your entire life, like most of our guys have, somebody on our department is going to know that person.
Yeah.
Unless it's a lot of times, unless it's a car wreck of somebody driving down I-49, because we do live on an interstate, or we run it on an interstate. But, and that's, I'd say the first half of my career, or the first half of me being on the fire department, you're still learning. You're still trying to figure that out, and then the second half, I feel like now my kids are old enough. I've got one obviously in the fire service, and my wife now, she's a nurse, so she's familiar with it, so she's very supportive, and I can talk to her about things, so I do have a little bit of that at home. But then to answer your question about, we have fire meetings every Tuesday night. So if there's an issue, we at least know that that's coming up, and usually our chief is very good about, if we have a major incident, for one, he'll call the guys involved and talk to them about it, but then also we'll go over the call at that Tuesday night meeting. So that helps.
Yeah, you guys have almost like it's a built-in debrief every week.
I mean, yeah, I guess essentially, and our chief is very good about talking to us and making sure things are okay. Like, we ran a fatality house fire here a few weeks ago, and I got stuck in command. I say that.
Welcome to being an officer, buddy.
But I got stuck in command of the call. But and our chief, he made sure that he touched base and said, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Can I do anything? If you ever need, if and when you want to talk about it or need to talk about it, reach out to me."
Well, it sounds like he's leading from the front.
Well, he is one of the best men and servant leaders I have ever known in my entire life. And I will solely credit him and one other person, Alan Durbin, to the reason I am in the fire service today.
And there's no doubt that's a good way to put it. Our chief is phenomenal. He is a leader. He'll, when you get those middle of the night calls where nobody wants to get out of bed, because obviously we're all in bed and we all got to get up and go to work the next day. He's always the first one to answer the radio, and he goes on them. I mean, he leads by example, and it's hard not to want to follow him.
I could also say he's probably almost ruined the fire service for me, because I expect no, I'm dead serious. I expect all of my leaders to mirror him.
Yeah.
Well, and in reality, they should. I mean, that's, how it should work. If you're in a leadership position like that, in a safety sensitive, career field, that's how you should lead. Like, yeah, I understand that, especially with bigger departments, like, you have to have the admin people who aren't going on calls and doing this and doing that. But, the people that are on the front lines, that's the behavior they should model. That's the leadership they would model or should model.
Well, and that's, and in the elevator trade, that's the same thing. As I would never, when I became a mechanic, or which is essentially a journeyman, you have an apprentice below you. I would never ask my apprentice to do something, crawl up a sketchy ladder or something like that, if I wouldn't do it myself. And usually I would do it myself the first time, just so they knew that.
Right.
Because because some of the stuff we did was kind of
sketchy.
Does
that song "About to Do Some Sketchy Shit"? Did that play in your mind a lot?
Pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So you're right, and I think a lot of that came from our chief. You always knew that he's never going to ask you to do something that he won't be right there by your side, or maybe in front of you. Yeah. Making sure that you're safe. And he'd almost be the one that would do it before he asked you to do it, just so he knows you're safe. And
he was we're lucky, and is still such a focal part of the community. His wife, worked at the school, worked under my grandpa. He just, it's one of the community serving the community. It's exactly what the fire service should be.
Yeah.
Well, and it's,
and he's on top of that, he's made men in the fire service. his son is a captain and a paramedic. We have, well, how many other firefighter paramedics? Another one is an assistant chief. You know, that he's made men that started there that go out and serve their communities in professional roles and are damn good at it.
Yeah.
Because of what he's fostered there.
We'll see. And that's the thing, is that kind of leadership creates that kind of culture, and it starts to have those ripple effects. So it's, he's that type of leader, and the people that have come up under him then become that type of leader and spread out.
Right.
And that's how you make real change, and that's how you foster that winning culture that we all want in the fire service.
Yes, I would. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you like to think that every fire department is that way, but I've been around long enough to know that that's not the case.
And we were even seeing it with him doing it in generations now. He inspired you, which inspired your son.
Absolutely.
Who is now a career fireman.
Yep. And 100%. And also he runs with Adrian too. So he's what I can remember when I got on, and my son that's in the fire service now, I've got a picture somewhere of I was holding him on the pump panel of the engine when he was, a month old. So it's like, and now he's career fire, and it's definitely super proud, of him. I mean, I'm proud of all my kids. I think all my kids are fantastic.
But he's better than the rest of them.
No. Nope. No, I mean, it's just, obviously you want, it's scary as shit, but it's, and he was one, and I'm not afraid to say it because I've told it to his face. He was one I was worried about, not in a bad way that he was going to do something bad, but it's just when he was little, he always said, I want to be a firefighter. But then he hit that, I don't know, middle school. And then it's like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to play video games. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Played video games for years. And it's like, then you ask him, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. Well, you're getting close to graduating. You're going to have to decide.
I guess I'll be a fireman.
Well, no. I tell you what, and funny story, not to get off tangent, but we, so I've got 5 kids. 3 of them are my stepkids and 2 of them are mine, but I think of all of them as my kids. So the 2 youngest, which is my youngest and then my wife's youngest, they wanted to get into duck hunting. So we got into duck hunting, and it's been several years ago. So long story short, we were going to take them on a guided duck hunt in Mound City, Missouri, which is where I guess it's phenomenal duck hunting up there. So I asked Brantley, which is my oldest, I said, hey, you want to go with us? And he's like, nah, I don't want to go. I'm like, okay. So I was talking to my wife. I'm like, I said, I'd like him to go. And she's like, just make him go. Make him go. So I said, okay. So I went and talked to him. I said, hey, you're going with us. I booked you. I've already spent the money. I said, you're going with us. And he's like, okay, fine. So he did. So he goes up there, and we go up there, and it was a light bulb. First duck he shot. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
We've had actually
pedophilia.
Yeah, no. We had Zach Poe is a friend of mine. He's a Marine veteran, and he runs a
I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah,
and Jason.
Yeah. And Jason Holm. Yeah.
So I took him up there, and it was literally like a light bulb went off. And that kid did a 180 degrees, and he turned into a hunting fanatic. And then at that point, he's like, I want to go be a wildlife biologist. So then in turn, he applies and gets on at, I just lost it. At, it was in Missouri Department of Conservation at, one outside of Rich Hill. I just completely drew a blank. We've hunted down there so many times.
I don't know.
I had there all the
time.
Anyway, long story short. So then where we lived, we adjoined Settles Ford Conservation Area. So some of our family farm where we lived at the time butts up to it. So he transferred from
the place.
That other place.
Yeah. Anyway.
Not Rock.
I'll get it. It'll come to me. There's Shell Osages down there right next to it, but I'm just completely drawing a blank.
It's personal to us, Jeremy. You don't understand. Like, when you're from a small town, God damn it, like you just
Well, hold on.
You don't get it.
What do you mean you don't get it? You ask Chris Nelson how small the town is that I grew up in. Believe
Four
me,
Rivers.
it's
Four Rivers.
Yes.
Son of a fuck. Why did I not remember that?
I would
I've been to
hazard
that place more times than I could see straight. Anyway, he started out working at Four Rivers, transferred to Settles Ford. Well, in the meantime, he got involved in some controlled burns. So he's doing some controlled wild grassland burns and stuff like that. And so he asked me one day, he's like, "You think I could get on the department?" I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "All you got to do is talk to Chief." And he's like, "Okay." So then I didn't say anything because I'm like, at this point, I'm thinking, I don't know how he's going to handle seeing the shit we see. So I just kind of let it go. And then about 3 or 4 months go by and he's like, "Hey, did you ever talk to Chief?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, just go talk to him whenever you're ready and he'll let you on. So he's like, "I think I'm ready." Okay. So we go up and talk to Chief and, because at this time I'm thinking, I don't want them to go through the anxiety and this crap that I've had to deal with.
Right.
And so we go talk to him. He gets on, and man, immediately, I think he ran a barn fire and ran some stuff, ran a house fire, and he's like, "I want to do this." So he went to EMT school, finished EMT school, took like a month off, and then he went to Hutchinson, the fire academy. So he got his EMT Fire 1 and 2 all in about an 8-month span. And then he went, and now he just got on at the department he's on now.
I'm trying to think. Just in the time that I've been down there, it's produced 2 captains, an assistant chief who was a captain before that, 3 other, if you include me, 3 career guys. 4 if you count your son.
So I can think of 9 guys that are, most of those 9 are paramedics, seasoned paramedics. That I think all of them that I counted, but one I think started there. Yeah.
I'm serious, Jeremy. That is the culture that is down there.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of culture that needs to spread and go other places. So, and it sounds like that's happening.
Yes, absolutely. And a couple of the guys that are on our department that kind of started there are on the same department that my son is. One of them's a captain. But and then you get into the tangent of, our medical calls. Which, do you remember how our medical? We run first respond under the ambulance service.
The old white pickup, is that still there? The Ford.
Well, so that one's been replaced
with the loudest fucking backup alarm that somebody in this room thought would be a great fucking idea. You thought I was going to forget that? You didn't think I'd forget that, huh?
You knew it when it was backing up, didn't you?
God.
Safety first, James.
Oh. He said put a backup alarm, so I'm like, okay. I find the loudest freaking backup alarm I could find and installed it. And damn, it was loud.
Terrible.
That one is gone. That truck's gone. We've replaced our rescue truck, but so we have all these seasoned paramedics that are very good paramedics, in our medical stuff, and I'm getting ready to go back to EMT school because I've already been an EMT once, and I let my license expire because we can't use our training. We can use our training to some extent, but because we fall under the medical direction of a different entity,
right,
we're only allowed to do what they allow us to do. So, this just frustrates the crap out of me because we've got even seasoned paramedics that we can't even see collar and backboard. A car wreck. So that adds to the frustration and the mental health of, we're sitting here watching this person struggle that we could essentially have this patient packaged and ready to put on the ambulance when they get here so they can get going. And there's been times we've had to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Dude,
it's frustrating.
That is something that is it's getting pushed more and more to the front especially in the first responder realm with fire departments. It's been that kind of way with the police departments for a long time, of organizational stressors is what's really like, yeah, we're running the trauma and that stuff is not awesome.
Right.
But if you have a good culture where you're able to use all your training and do everything that you know is the right thing to do, it helps mitigate that somewhat.
Yes.
But that feeling of not being allowed to use all your skills and to do those things, and then having somebody who is completely removed and detached from what's going on out in the field, making those decisions, it wears on the front line something awful.
It does.
And there's organizations out there trying to address that.
Well, and it's been a battle, and that's, our chief has been, he's been battling that battle for a long time, but now I will say that those instances don't happen very often to where we're waiting and we could be doing more. A lot of times we're not too far ahead of the ambulance just because of locations, but you get some of those weird locations or the ambulance is tied up or something, and you're just waiting. So those don't happen often, but when they do happen, it's very frustrating because it's like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, it happens you wouldn't think it happens in a major metropolitan area, but that stuff happens for us too.
Yeah,
where we
imagine that.
Yeah. And especially so this was back during COVID, and things were crazy.
The forbidden time.
The forbidden time. Oh, I shouldn't have said the C word. Back in that time, we're not going to talk about, that didn't actually happen and nobody's actually dying from. Anyway, that thing. We ran a call. I was on a truck at the time.
Right.
So a ladder truck. Well, we get dispatched on the EMS call. The bane to all truckmen's existence. It is not in our district. It's like 2 districts over. So we've got a 10-minute response time anyway.
Dang.
And so we get there.
That's a short response time in Adrian.
Yeah. So we get there.
The call we have.
Yeah. So we get there, and I'm riding out that day because I was still a firefighter at the time. And I'm like, hey, we need an ambulance here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You're getting these people from across the state line. Because, we were at level 0 because everybody and their mother and their uncle and their cousin is wanting to go to the hospital. Well, then you tack on top of that, we have all of these people who are out with the same thing that can't come to work.
Right.
So we're horribly short on staffing. It's a perfect storm of we're just trying to bubble gum and bail and tape, bail and wire. Yeah. Bail and wire this thing together to just keep running calls.
Yeah.
And I mean, it hasn't happened since then. Staffing levels have come back up.
Right.
Call volume hasn't gone down.
Right.
But, I mean, we're still, all the departments across the nation are in the same boat of staffing has not risen at a rate that the population and the call volume has.
Right.
Phoenix Fire is in horrible straits right now. Like, they need something like 20 new stations.
What?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And by the time that they would get those built, they're going to need 20 more.
Have you not seen the projections out there, Ronnie? Oh, it's insane. It's crazy. It's scary. And it's not like, I mean, I guess if anything, maybe it's the city's fault because like they're exploding as a metro area, and they've got the room in the city. It's not suburban areas that are exploding. It is the city proper.
Wow.
And they can't keep up. And their fire chief has been arguing it. They're like, hey, this is coming down the pipe. We need to do this. And now they're literally 20 stations behind, staring down the barrel at least another 10 they're going to need. And they're like, oh, how did this problem even get here? You just to stack on top of that, let's say by some magic that they're able to build those 20 stations in a year, 2 years, right? Well, now you got to staff them, and you got to put fire trucks in them. You know how long it takes to get a fire truck?
Yeah, it's horrible right now.
It's always been horrible. 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
That's
to get one.
Everybody got their C-word money.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, let's order a fire truck. And Pierce went from like a year build time to a 3.5 year build time.
That's crazy. I've heard that the build times are getting horrendous, but
Yeah. Well, and then because they're putting so much stuff on them, like
right.
it's not the fire truck that whenever I came on, or even, 5 years after I came on,
Right.
the things that they're putting on these trucks, all the electronics and all of this stuff. I mean, some of it's nice. Most of it's garbage.
I'm picturing the old yellow.
Oh, I love that truck.
Yeah.
They're making them where they won't run anymore is what they're doing. But
Yeah.
it was an open cab.
Yep.
It was an old Pierce open cab, 2-stroke Detroit diesel. Man, that thing would scream. I love that truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
It sucked in the wintertime, but
Well,
whatever.
you can't have it all.
Hardest
Ronnie. You
working-
can't have it all.
Hardest working fucking fire engine I've ever seen.
Yeah. I remember we had a call one time, dead of winter. We were out about as far, because we cover 270 square miles. So we cover 5 north, 5 south, 10 west, and about 17 east is our area. And we were about as far east as we could get. We were pushing the 17-mile mark, and dead of winter, we pull up, put this fire out, and we get ready to leave, and the freaking brakes are froze up on that truck because of moisture, just because of we had to sit out there for hours waiting on the freaking tow truck to come and tow our truck back. And we weren't even on overtime.
We were on free time.
We don't get paid, but
They were making free $99 an hour.
yeah. But, I didn't realize that you guys had that similar stuff like that, and I know there's always going to be frustrations, but
Yeah.
very frustrating things.
Yeah. Well, and it's things that, like he said, the metropolitan areas have grown so rapidly, so much more rapidly than they have previously, right?
Right.
I'm sure that if we went back and did some kind of civil study, we could see cities growing at commensurate rates or whatever. But it just seems like the population has increased and we haven't kept up with, the first responder aspect of it. We don't have enough police. We don't have enough fire or EMS. Like look at hospitals, right?
Right.
How many hospitals do we have that are within easy reach, where it's not a 10-minute transport time if you're over here,
Right.
Like some places are better than others, but like that infrastructure to keep our citizens safe has kind of been put on the back burner.
Right.
And it kind of needs to be addressed.
Something else I think Adrian and Gary have done a great job of is the community buy-in. It's easier because it's smaller, yes, but everybody in the town loves those guys. They are the neighbors. The community 1,000% supports them, and I think that's also a culture too that Gary has made of the professionalism of the department as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. And like something as little as it was just, they got their first set of Hearst rescue tools before I got on, the old hydraulic spreader and cutter. And they had to raise money, essentially because, our rural side is all voluntary dues. So there is no tax money on the rural side. It's just if somebody wants to be a member, which all that essentially gets you is you don't have to pay a bill if we show up.
Right.
But it's also the only funding we have to buy fire equipment. So if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have fire equipment anyway. And then the city was it's a small city. There's not a lot of businesses, so they didn't have a lot of tax revenue either. So our first set of rescue tools, they had to basically raise money to buy them. So when those things happened, that was a big deal. Gary would put those articles in the paper. He would invite the community to the fire station and come see what your money bought. So he involved the community and made them feel like they were as important as they truly were, because if it wasn't for our community, we wouldn't have a department.
Right. So what do you guys do? Like, you get that new piece of equipment. What about training? Is that something you guys have to do on your own? Or is that something that you get together and somebody goes and does a training and becomes the trainer, and then they come back and bring it to everybody? Or
a lot of cases, you know, like we've just upgraded to, it's been a couple years, but we've upgraded to battery powered tools now.
Mhm.
And essentially, either if you have somebody on the department we're fortunate to have career guys that probably already deal with those tools on their department, so they can train the guys that haven't used them yet and train them how to use them. But usually, you know, there's guys won't be checked off and released to use equipment, a truck or whatever, until they've been trained on it, you know. So essentially, a lot of times it's a trainer. You know, there's somebody training if they're familiar with the equipment, or they've had the training on it if it's a new piece of equipment that nobody knows anything about. Which in our department, that's pretty rare with all the career guys we have. So we're lucky. We're not like we're not like other departments I know. But
Oh, don't think ours is organized.
we're not going to talk about that. You already pissed me off already this morning, James. Don't get me on the soapbox about training.
But it's, you know, and our chief is very good about, you know, I know it's very difficult to follow. It's almost impossible unless your funding is almost unlimited to truly follow NFPA standards. It's almost impossible. The standards that are out there is in most cases unrealistic. I know that a lot of them are good, but some of them are like a small volunteer department that's limited tax funding or a voluntary dues based. You don't have the funding to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, the NFPA is cotton candy rainbow land, right? I mean, it's the perfect world, perfect scenario, unlimited funds, unlimited personnel.
Right.
It's great. Is it valuable? 100%.
Yeah.
Because it keeps pushing us to be better and to be safer and to do the right things.
Right.
Now, a lot of people will shit on it because of politics or whatever, and I get that, but you can't overlook the good that it's done.
Absolutely. And I agree. It's like in the elevator industry, anytime there was a new safety policy implemented, it's because somebody did something stupid.
Yeah.
And either got hurt or died.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree that NFPA is phenomenal, but it's unrealistic for some departments to be able to truly follow it the way they want you to.
I would say it's unrealistic for any department to follow it that way.
Yeah.
But it sets a goal that keeps people striving, basically.
And our chief is very good about trying to keep us as compliant as we financially possibly can.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, at the end of the day, the job's got to get done.
Right.
So, and you're not going to pull up on a house fire or that car wreck or whatever. And okay, great. We need to have 6 people here to do all of this stuff. And there's 3 of us. Shit.
Well, what else?
We'll
The NFPA also too. They can't dictate give a shit or passion or dedication, and that's where I think at least Adrian makes up for what they lack in funding. They gain in dedication and drive and passion of the job.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say it's a fire. There's nothing safe about a fire, but I will say, you know, we're very good as a department, and a lot of this is you know, driven from our chief, that we are as safe as we possibly. I mean, we've always got each other's back. We're always looking out for one another, you know. So we're doing it as safe as we possibly can, and you're still running into a burning building.
Yeah. Well, this job, this career field is dangerous.
That's what they say.
Yeah. Just by the sheer nature of what we are doing.
I fell down a flight of stairs the other day because I can't walk, but it's dangerous.
I mean, I fell down a circular staircase. That was super awesome. In a basement fire.
That's Ooh. Oh, there wasn't even a fire. It was just my dumbass missed stairs on a circular. You ever known how degrading it is to fall down in a circle?
Mm-hmm.
I've done it. A lot of elevator machine rooms had the old circular staircases, and man, those hurt. Old cast iron stairs.
Yep. I made it about 3 rungs down, and then my axe got hung up, so that stopped me.
Well, that's a bonus.
It also stopped me. I was like, hey, I probably shouldn't stay here right now. It's a little warm down there.
Yeah.
Ronnie, take me into, I know, but to the viewers and especially to Jeremy, what is the culture of the fire department outside of the fire department? And Adrian, when you guys aren't in the station or on the calls, what is the culture of it?
I mean, I think for the most part, we're all, I mean, you can kind of look at Adrian as essentially a shift in a station, because that's what it is. It's like, you know, where most departments have 3 shifts. And then, so like, I don't know, you take a shift from a specific station and how many calls did they run or whatever, how many house fires. So there's kind of like a brotherhood there. We're essentially a shift on a station, and we all get along. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, every once in a while you'll have a little bit of drama, but we really don't have a lot of that to speak of. Most everybody gets along. You know, I know years past we used to have barbecues and we'd have, I know we have we used to call it a wife appreciation dinner to appreciate our wives for dealing with all the crap that we, you know, but now it's turned into, it's essentially a, we have it at Christmas time, but it's more of it's just a time for us to stop and get together and actually talk and visit without it being at the fire station or, you know, whatever. So we don't have the group gatherings like we used to, just because everybody's gotten so busy. But for the most part, we all are friends, you know. I guess that's the best way to equate is from my experiences with, you know, I've done ride-alongs in metropolitan departments. And it's kind of like the brotherhood you have in your station on your shift. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Unless you guys just don't like this. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the people that you work with the most closely, the most often.
Right.
It's just you're doing it every time with the same guys.
So, and I think, you know, our average, I think last year we ended with 420 some calls is what our call volume was last year. And I remember when I got on, we were averaging just a little over 300. So, and it's all voluntary. We have no paid. Everybody works a full-time job somewhere else. So we on average, we run more than 1 call a day, which is, you know, I'm sure lots of people that are going to listen to this think like, well, that's 400 and some calls is nothing.
Yeah, but whenever you're leaving your job to go do that and then going back to your job, right. It's like, yeah, that's a lot.
Right. Or, you know, not many of us have that opportunity. I'm fortunate enough to have a business in town that I can leave most of the time and come back to, but a lot of guys work in the city. Like I did for, you know, I worked on elevators for 26 years. There's one elevator in Adrian. So I had to go where the elevators were. No, our school has an actual elevator. But, you know, it's, 400 and some calls to me seems like a lot, you know, when it's, and we have 20, I don't even know what our roster is, 25 or so. I don't know exactly, but and most everybody's pretty active. Most of those are pretty active. But everybody's got a life, you know, everybody's got kids. And so we could have 15 guys show up on a call, and we could have, you know, that call I ran here not long ago, a house fire. There was 2 of us that showed up in the beginning. a couple more guys rolled in, and thankfully we have phenomenal mutual aid departments that are there for us and help us out, whenever we need help, or even when we don't need help, they still come and help, So I don't even know where we were at there, but
yeah. Well, so that kind of raises a question of, so when a call gets dispatched, like a house fire or something, and it's like, okay, you and the other guy are going, do you know who else is coming?
we actually all carry radios.
Okay.
So when we get dispatched, our normal procedure is you call in, say, hey, my radio number, I'm responding. So yeah, we generally have a good idea of who's coming.
Okay. So
most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes guys get walked over because two guys try to call at the same time and you don't know it. Yeah. So we may get there and think there's only two of us and two more guys show up or whatever, But
whose responsibility is it to go get the fire truck? How's that decided?
Our general protocol is we go to the station.
Okay.
And then we respond. There's a few of us that live out of the city. Like I'm a couple miles out. If there's enough guys responding to bring equipment, and it's say because I live east of town and it's on the east side, I usually call whoever. If Chief's there, I'll say, hey, do you want me to go direct? And he'll either say yes or no, I need you to come in and get a truck or whatever. Okay. So our gear, everything's kept at the station. We all respond to the station. If I'm going direct, somebody will grab my gear and throw it on the truck and bring it to me. So,
that's cool.
Or I do carry wildland gear in my truck. Like yesterday, we had a grass fire. It was literally 2 miles from my house. So I just went direct to that, but it varies.
I wonder how many volunteer departments do it that way. Cause I know there's some that, the guys just carry their gear in their car and truck and stuff. And that just, with everything that we're finding out about how dangerous the gear actually is and causes cancer and all that shit.
Yep.
It's, doesn't seem like the brightest idea.
Well, and I carry, because for several years I lived about 9 miles east of town, but in reality it was about a 15 to 20 minute drive. I carried my gear at that time, but I'd keep it in the bed of my truck. I didn't let it into my cab area,
Yeah.
But most of the departments I know around us, I think most of them function pretty similar, that when they get a call, they go to the station and respond equipment from there. I know there's lots of departments that don't do it that way, but I don't know of a lot.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. It's been so long for me. Like, my dad was a volunteer back in Louisiana. So I don't remember him ever even having fire gear. I don't know how they did it back then, how they were doing. I know that he went to a couple house fires, but
yeah,
that'd
be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I know that we had that little fire station shed in town or whatever.
Right.
And I think there was just one size fits all, couple things of gear and grab it and go. And everybody just kind of responded from their house to wherever they were going.
Yeah.
So
something, right. Take us in, explain to us a little bit, at least here in the city, we have abundance of resources, whether that be for our patients that we treat, whether it be for us with our own mental health, or just whatever it may be. In rural America, especially in Adrian, there isn't that. And it's not because nobody cares, but like you alluded to earlier, the funding is not there. You don't get millions of dollars thrown to an organization to try and come up with something to see what they can do. It's
right.
What is that life like? How explain to the viewers, like, as a first responder, what it's like kind of operating in that?
As far as,
well, just especially like we'll start for like mental health resources for yourself. Here, we may not always like them all the time, but up here in the city, there's at least 6 or 7 different people, organizations, whatnot. I know I could call to get help with any sort of traumatic incident I experience or continuation of traumatic incidences. Like, that's not necessarily there in Adrian or even in Bates County.
So we had a department chaplain for years. and Jerry was phenomenal. So if you had a problem, you could go to him and he would help you. If it's something, I don't know that I personally don't know of anybody that we ever had to go past that. I'm not saying there wasn't, but I may not be privy to that information. Jerry was very good. And Jerry's still around. He just has stepped down.
He's still there around.
He comes. Yeah. I mean,
How old is he now?
I don't know exactly. He's pushing 80, probably. But he'll stop by on a Tuesday night meeting. We don't have a designated chaplain now, but we have a firefighter on our department now. He's a preacher in one of the churches in town, and he's definitely one that you could go to if you needed help. And I don't know if the plans are if he's the unofficial chaplain. I don't know, but he's good. But I do know if there was a true issue, Gary would make damn sure no matter the cost. I mean, he would spend money out of his own pocket to make sure you were taken care of. So I don't have an answer for you on what we would do, but I know it would be taken care of.
Well, I'm interested, like, because you talked earlier about just a lot of your anxiety with your kids and with some of the calls that came about. Like, what was your professional or unprofessional resolution to that? Or
about a Harley. Dude, I shit you not. I struggled with it for years and was medicated, and finally I bought a Harley. Actually, the first bike wasn't a Harley, but we won't talk about that.
Was it a Harley?
No. Harley freaking stood up, but anyway, that may have been more the rider. I don't know, but either way, so I laugh about that, but I did. I mean, I bought a motorcycle and I started riding when I could, and slowly, I think one day, I don't even remember what I was feeling good. Not just and I didn't ride a lot, but one day I'm like, screw this, and anybody listening to this, don't do what I did. But I just stopped taking my meds. And I've never had a problem since. But I found it's not the Harley. I found something to take my mind away from it. That wasn't drugs or alcohol, because that ain't going to solve shit. But it was something to take my mind away from it, to make me not think about it. And I've researched, and I've been to therapy. The jacked up part is I'm kind of weird. I started researching it on the internet. How the hell do I fix anxiety? Because I hate medicine. I hate taking medicine. And when I got put on medicine, I'm like, I'll take it because I need something at this point, but I don't want to stay on it. So I researched and I started doing things that they recommend, how to keep your mind off stuff or change the way your mind's thinking whenever that thought pops into your head. So I decided to go to therapy. And nothing against counselors or therapists or anything. I go into this counseling session and this therapist starts telling me all these things to do. I'm like, I already do that. You already do that. I already do that. And they're like, well, why are you here? Like, I don't know. You tell me, damn it. So, but I'm weird that way. A lot of people probably don't do that, but I research stuff and I like knowledge and I want to know stuff. The best thing I found to help my anxiety was to talk about it. I don't care who it was. I'd talk about it with, even just talk about my anxiety. I went to the ER twice because I swore to God I was having a heart attack. And I'm like, I know I'm not having a heart attack, but my mind's saying, you're having a heart attack. You're going to die. So I go to the emergency room, and the minute the doctor walked in and said, your EKG's fine, it just went away. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. It makes me look like an idiot that I'm in an emergency room when there's nothing wrong with me. So talking about it has been a good way for me to ease it to bring myself down. And I truly haven't struggled with it in many years. But I laugh at it, and I always say I bought a Harley,
Yeah.
But I think that just kind of started the.
Well,
Then I switched from Harleys because I watched a guy get creamed at Sturgis one year, and I'm like, I ain't doing this anymore. I went to Jeeps. Then I got broke. Whatever.
you saw what's sitting in the driveway.
I don't
and
currently have a Jeep right now.
We are the two worst people
Oh, I know.
to talk about Harleys and Jeeps. We are terrible. Like, we do a lot of good things. We try and spread mental health awareness, and we do as much as we can, but we also have Harleys and Jeeps. So we are god-awful examples on what to do right.
Well, here's the thing, though, and it's kind of, you have to find what works for you, right? And
Absolutely.
it's taking something to where, not necessarily taking your mind off of it or whatever, but it's a way to reset.
Yes.
And a way to kind of get back in touch with things that you enjoy and being that person that you want to be without all of these stressors.
Right.
So for me, like, yeah, me and my wife are going to go off-roading and camping, and we're going to take the dogs and we're going to sit around a campfire and we go, trail ride and that kind of thing.
Right.
Or I'm going to get on my Harley and take a ride, but it's things like that allow you to do that reset. And maybe, I had this conversation with a buddy of mine, and he had some bad calls and stuff, and we were kind of talking, and he's like, I don't feel like I need to go to therapy or anything. He's like, yeah, it was bad, but I'm dealing with it and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, man. So we're talking, and he's like, well, kind of, what's your perspective on that? I said, if you don't need to go, don't go. I said, it sounds like you talk to your wife, you talk to your friends. That works for you. Not everybody has to go to therapy in this career field.
Right.
It's some kind of misunderstanding, or just people just don't get it. But if you have a good support system and healthy ways of dealing with things, just because you see a bunch of traumatic stuff doesn't mean you're going to get PTSD, doesn't mean you're going to get depressed. It doesn't mean all of that stuff.
Right.
Because if you have outlets for it and you're dealing with it, and some people just deal with it naturally, other people don't.
Right.
And some people might need a little bit of help. Some people might need to go to a therapist. Some people might need meds for a little while. Some people might need meds permanently.
Right.
Some people, they don't ever get to that point because they're not letting their glass get full. They're constantly emptying it out.
Ronnie, when you were talking about going to a therapist, I was giggling to myself because I'm like, I bet he tore that person alive. I bet he just ate him up. But we've talked about this a lot of times on this podcast, especially as we're learning now. For us, at least first responders, even if it's volunteer, the cultural competency of the people you're going to see is huge. Because otherwise, we will eat a lot of these Ma and Pa Johnson County just out here to try and help people. We'll destroy them.
Well, and it's like, and like I said, everything that I seen two different ones, and everything they were telling me was stuff I read online. And it's like, now, if nobody took the time to do it themselves, then maybe it's great. I mean, because some of those stuff that I did read about, and it did help. And a lot of it is changing your thought process of, whenever that bad thought or that fear or concern creeps into your head, you figure out a way to force your mind to think about something else. And then
schema shifting.
Well, and I had anxiety, and then you throw OCD on top of it, and I laugh now, but for years I would check the doors in my house. I'd check them 3-4 times. No set number. Like, I didn't have that kind of OCD, but I'd be laying in bed. I'm like, I got to go check the doors. And I couldn't sleep if I didn't do it. My anxiety was to make sure my family was safe. I go check the doors, make sure they're locked. Go back, lay down in bed. 10 minutes go by. You sure that door's locked? Yes, dumbass. You just got out of bed, but you better go check it again just to make sure. And it's, I laugh about it now, but it was so frustrating because it's like, why am I doing this? You know? So anyway, I don't do that anymore. I check the doors one time. I make sure they're locked at night and I go to bed. And I don't know if it's just, I was so hard on myself of, you know, why are you doing this? You know, fix it and figure out a way to fix it. And I'd try something. And if it didn't work, I'd try something else. And if it didn't work, because I was bound and determined. My wife gets so mad at me right now because I don't even like taking Tylenol. She's like, well, take some Tylenol. I don't want to. She gets
Quit your bitching.
Right. So I'm like, I'm bound and determined I'm going to get off medication. And I'm not saying medication's bad, because if that's what helps you, then do that instead of drugs, or, you know, like bad drugs or alcohol or whatever. But I was bound and determined to find a way to get off of them. So I would try things and I would try things and I would try things. And, you know, and I'm okay now. I mean, if things bother me, I'll talk about them, you know, and I laugh. It's not laugh, but it's pretty hard for things. You know, I watched my parents. My dad was my hero. You know, I watched him pass away from cancer. Literally watched him laying in bed, you know, so, and then my mother, she had COPD and I literally watched her on hospice pass away as well. And I kind of think to myself, I'm like, you know, after I've seen that, there's really nothing else that's, you know, unless it was one of another family member, there's not a lot that bothers me right now. And I don't want to sound cold. But after you watch that, it's pretty hard to let other things bother you, you know?
It's just science. Like, you know, it's no different than if it's a workout for your brain, like it's a workout for your body. If, you know, if you hit a high point on bench, like, it's all of a sudden the rest of them don't seem that bad. You know you can do it. And then but now there's a dangerous thing. You have to be cautious. Just like you can't put 1,000 pounds on the bench and be like, oh, I did this, I can do this here. Like, we can't just keep stacking and think we're invincible. But that's a natural response for those of us in these jobs to just one could use the word resiliency. Maybe that is appropriate as long as it's healthy and you're continuing like you are with your dialogue with it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is find, if it's there's nothing wrong if it doesn't bother you. Some people might think you're cold, but there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I put a lot of faith in the good Lord, and, you know, but if it does bother you, don't let it build. And I think that's what happened in the early part of my time, is I wouldn't talk about it, you know, and I just, you know, blew it off. Now, we never had an issue in our department where we were told, you know, suck it up, you know, you got to be a man. We never had that. But I just thought, you know, I don't know if it was, I just thought that that's what you should do. I don't know. So I don't know if that's what happened, and it just built and built and built. And then finally it snapped, and I'm like, something's jacked up here, you know?
Well, I think that, you know, that's kind of a product of, you know, the time that we were raised in.
Yes.
Is, you know, a man is supposed to be this.
Right.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's true. But you also have to be this and this and this.
Right.
You know, and
there's nothing wrong with being sad or being vulnerable or being afraid. For God's sakes, if you're not afraid of some of the stuff we see,
I'm more concerned. I'm more concerned that you're not afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
But
that leads to bad shit because that means you don't have any respect.
Right.
And if you don't respect that fire, you're asking for a bad time.
Yeah. And it's not even fire. I mean, it's with anything. If you know, I've rolled up on car wrecks that just literally scared the crap out of me. I'm like, how in the hell, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. And that's the one, you know, that's the one thing. If anybody that's listening to this, don't you dare be the guy on the department that says, suck it up, because all you're going to do is just, you could potentially destroy somebody, you know?
Yeah. I've said that a bunch. It's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Don't you fucking say it. Don't say it. We went months without hearing it. Don't say it.
I'm not going to say that.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is that is one of my pet peeves. The biggest pet
the other
peeves.
thing.
I know what you're referring to, and I'm not saying it. See me? This is me not saying it.
Hey, but I don't know. Somebody going to fill me in here?
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
When I'm
But
out of the room.
So I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, right? Of people that will go and they get help. You know, like they'll go to a therapist or whatever. But then you're sitting around the kitchen table at the station or the firehouse or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And the conversation of mental health comes up. And they're the person that they just left their therapy session like an hour ago and came back to shift. And they're like, oh, that's bullshit. Just, the saying.
Suck it up, buttercup.
There you go.
Drives
That's
me
the
up the
saying.
fucking wall. We made
Yeah.
it so many episodes of us saying that.
And who broke the trend? Who broke the streak? So, but then they're the ones that will sit there and call it bullshit and how it, this and that, and just, toughen up.
Yeah.
If you can't hack it, you shouldn't be in this line of work. But they just left their therapy session. It's like, come on, man. Like, look, you have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility, right? Leave it better than you found it. And we have a responsibility to teach the next generation that's coming up.
Right.
And if we don't pass that knowledge on, the knowledge of what a soffit is and what a load-bearing wall is and, the flow path of flame and where to cut on the A-pillar and
Right.
this and that, all of these things, right? Yeah, we have that responsibility. The other part of that is we have the responsibility to talk to the new people coming in about how to not fucking kill yourself.
Right.
How to not have 4 divorces. How to not have a drug problem. How to not have an alcohol addiction. Like, and I would argue that that's almost, it is equally as important, if not more important, than everything else that we have to teach them.
I 1000% agree with you. And it's I had a guy at he was a neighboring metropolitan department. I was putting an elevator in a building that adjoined their firehouse, and I went over there one day and just was looking at their fire trucks and visiting with them. And he was a captain, and he said, "This was the greatest job in the world." He said, "It's like going to summer camp every third day."
Mhm.
And it's like, and I obviously, I can agree to that. Other than I'm not, not the same thing per se, but it's like, why can it be so great? And I agree that it is so great, but then come with this such a horrible side effect. How do we fix that? Other than don't. To me, it's you're more of a man if you can actually admit that something's bothering you. I mean, if seeing somebody pass bothers you, that's okay.
That's normal.
That's normal, and to suck it up is just, to me, I mean, those people they're probably struggling,
Mhm.
and they don't want to admit it, and I probably dealt with that for a little bit. Then at some point I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna keep this in, because people are dying because of this. When my brothers and sisters in the emergency services are dying because of that, what good is it doing if I'm keeping it in? If I'm not saying, hey, you know what? It doesn't make you any less of a person to not talk about it.
Exactly.
And it's, I don't know. And it probably means more to me now, especially that I'm, with my son being involved. It's more important to me now than ever. And it's been pretty important to me. I probably never, like your podcast is phenomenal. And that's why when I found it and started following you, like, this is great. This is what we need. I probably didn't share enough, as I probably, and I sometimes feel guilty. Maybe I should have shared more, but I mean, it is what it is. I can't go back.
Yeah.
But be there for, especially as somebody that's, we don't have ranks in our department. We have a chief and assistant chief, and the rest of us we're all firefighters. We all just go and get the job done. But there's guys that have more experience that, generally, it's kind of unwritten that they're kind of the ones that, I don't know how you want to word it, but they're the ones that kind of, they're the seasoned guys. They're the veteran firefighters that kind of know, and it should be our jobs to make sure. And I always tell the younger guys, hey, after a call, if anything's bothering you, come and holler at me.
Every even shift has their unofficial leaders. It doesn't have to be somebody with a white shirt or that of rank. It's just, who's willing to step up and use their experience to educate others and lead others.
Right.
You don't have to. Sometimes we get lost in this facade that there has to be some bugles, there has to be a white shirt or position of rank, and there doesn't.
Right.
It's the knowledge is the knowledge, and it's everybody's responsibility for sharing it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of my biggest things. I know I've probably harped on it. People are tired of hearing me say it, but it's leadership at every level. And that's really what it boils down to, is leadership. That, whoever the senior firefighter is, it's your job. You're responsible for those people that are underneath you.
Right.
Because you're always going to have junior guys.
Right.
You're
New
always,
guys.
New guys that are coming in. And then, you have, for us, we have drivers and then captains and then battalion chiefs or whatever. But
right.
If you don't have that, if you want to equate it to the military, if you don't have those NCOs that are, making shit run at that level, then once you get to the officer level, it's like, there's a reason why they joke about lieutenants get lost in land nav all the time.
Well, and that's the one thing I will say about our department. We have a chief and we have an assistant chief, and they're both great, but anything good, our chief gives the credit to the guys. And if something went bad, he takes the credit for it. And it's like, we all, get the job done, but he takes zero credit. He gives all the credit to the guys. And, you have to, I always tell him all the time, I said, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't follow you. We wouldn't be the way we are.
Right.
So it takes good leadership. But then he also puts that, he puts that ball in the senior firefighters court too, of, he'll bounce ideas off of us. And he's like, what do you think? So I don't know. It's, it's interesting. You see, I read stuff all the time, and watch a lot of stuff from other departments, and we're probably a little different than a lot of departments, Yeah.
But you mean like a good leader and functional, and everybody you stand out.
Well, and we're not perfect. I don't want to sound like we're perfect. We make mistakes and we do things wrong, but that's one thing is we always, any kind of an incident, major incident, a big car wreck or we had a grain elevator exploded here a few years ago, a house fire, whatever. We always critique the incident. The next Tuesday meeting, we'll critique it and see what could we have done different, because we all know we could have done something better. We could have done something different. Granted, the job got done. We all came home safe, and that's the goal. But what could we do better?
See, and I think that is something that a lot of larger departments probably used to do, but it has now fallen kind of on the wayside as department whole.
Right.
Like not company specific, because I think there's still, companies out there and there's still departments out there that do that.
Right.
But I think the excuse that's being used is, well, call volume. Like we don't have time to do those. Well, you have to, because that's the only way that you're going to improve.
Right.
Right. Because if, you are at scene X and you went, you got the job done, blah, blah, blah. But if you would have done this at this point, it would have went a lot smoother.
Right.
If Jerry would have brought the spreaders over here,
right,
we would have got them out faster, or, whatever. And it's ticky-tack a lot of times, sometimes.
Right.
But it's also those small little changes that end up making a big difference later on.
Right.
There's been 2 times I can think of that I've said, I'm glad it was Adrian. And one was that grain explosion a few years ago. I remember seeing it. I'm like, I'm glad that's Adrian.
That's kind of a dick thing to say.
I know what he's saying.
Yeah. And the other was when my grandma passed away. Her and my grandpa were at home. It was Thanksgiving night, and she was complaining of chest pain and getting ready. He was getting ready to take her to the hospital himself. And when she started decompensating pretty quick, they called 911, and 2 career seasoned paramedics that I absolutely love and respect showed up, and she ended up coding there with them present, and they got pulses back and got her in the ambulance, and they were going to fly. It was just one of those perfect storms of where it's going to be hard for her to make it out of this. But I wasn't there at the time, but I just remember thinking, I'm glad it's Adrian. Like, it's one of those that because we do it ourselves, or, even amongst crews in the city and whatnot, we're like, that was that crew. I hope they got it done. But I'm glad it's Adrian. There's never, with everything that's down there and the way that department's running, the people that are on it, like I said, there's no NFPA compliance for passion and professionalism.
Right.
And I'm glad it's Adrian.
And that bleeds from the top down. Yeah.
Well, Ronnie,
I don't know.
thanks for making the trip up here, man. I appreciate it.
Well,
this was fantastic.
I tell you what, when I told my wife, I said, when you messaged me, and we've talked prior to this, and when you messaged me, I'm like, I just got invited to a podcast. I'm like, I don't even know. But I'm like, but they want to talk about what it's like to be on a volunteer department. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I've literally, it's been a part of my life because I think I've been on 22 years and I'm 45. Don't make fun of me.
Old ass.
But
I'm 44, so.
Well, I tell you what.
Old asses.
It's been a part of my life for a long time. And I wished when I got on, I was already into the elevator career by several years, and it would have been a tremendous pay cut. And I didn't have a child at the time when I got on, but I wish that I had gone career. And still to this day, so much so that I'm fixing to go back to EMT school, and I'm contemplating going to a paid department. Because with my job now...
Buddy, listen, you ain't got the knees for it. I love you.
Whatever.
Don't do this to yourself.
I don't want to hear it. Don't listen. I've been trying to talk myself out of it for a long time. Anyway, so me and my wife, we own group homes. So I've retired unofficially from the elevator trade, and I help her run that. But we were talking, and she's the one that kind of pushed me to do this. She's like, you've always wanted to do this, and you love it. She said it's the department that I'm potentially going to go to work for. It's a 4896.
Ooh.
But it's low call volume. I say low call.
You talk to those 4896 people, they are in love with it.
Well,
I know Joey's on that, and
yeah, they swear by it.
I wouldn't want to do it in some of these major stations, but that's the department my son works for, and I cleared it with him before he loves it, But so with our business, I can do most of what I need to do in those 4 days. So right now we're having to pay for our own insurance, which is nuts.
yeah.
It's expensive, and we have crap coverage. So we're like, well, this would be a good way that you'd be able to get. I don't know how many years I can be. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it. I think I'm going to start out probably part-time and just see, but I can run calls fine there at Adrian. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know why I couldn't do it there.
Yeah.
But, it's what I love. I mean, to me, the good stuff far outweighs the bad stuff we see. But it's just how we handle the bad stuff And if you're not going to be able to handle all the bad stuff on your own, I hate to break it to anybody that's listening to this, and that's okay, but we're a family. They call it a brotherhood for a reason. We don't have to do this alone. We don't go in and fight a fire alone. We don't go to a car wreck alone. We don't do any of this stuff alone. So don't deal with your struggles alone either. So I'm excited, scared, all the above.
Well, you'll have to let us know.
I will. I'll find out soon enough, I guess. I still got to get through EMT class and make sure I pass it first. But
I think you'll be fine.
Pissed that I have to do it again. But I think my license expired in like 2016 or 2017, and I think you got a year or something before they make you do it again, or a year or two.
Yeah, I don't know. James, final thoughts?
I'm glad he's here for a lot of reasons. Like, of course, I get to show off my hometown, so I'm like, "Fuck yeah, we're better than you." But I will always be grateful for what that department did for me. If it was not for that department, I literally would not be sitting here right now. And Ronnie and Josh and Mark and Brian and Gary and all those guys that just instilled literally from the time I was 18 of what the job should and can and should be, and has always led me in a pursuit of that in my career. And I'm just as grateful for Ronnie and those guys that shared those experiences with me in the short time I was there before I went off to college and drank a lot. But yeah, I will forever be grateful of everybody down there.
Well, I know we all appreciate it. And we wouldn't have what we have without the support of everybody, guys like you and our community and everything in between,
Yeah. Well, I think it's fantastic that your community supports it as well as it does. And you've got the leadership that you have.
Yeah.
So
we can't stress enough. Our community is 1000% phenomenal. I just hope one thing I can hope for is every fire department, every firefighter has the opportunity to experience a community that supports them.
Yeah, I think that's all of our hopes.
Yeah. I agree. We're lucky. We've, and I don't want this to make it sound like we're perfect, because we're not, but we just try really hard, and we love our community and we want to help them.
Well, and I think that's the important part, right?
It is.
That's why we all got in this career field.
Yeah.
Is to be of service and help the places that we live. So,
and that's the one thing that because we all run those frequent flyers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even call them, but that's the one thing I tell all the new guys, and I've stressed to my son, you know what, that 80-year-old lady that calls you every other day and you get frustrated. And I said, it'll be even worse when you're probably on a career department where you're trying to sleep after you've ran calls all day or whatever. But remember, you may be the only person that she has. And just imagine if you were in life at that age and not have anybody. You've lost your spouse. Your kids have moved away. Be compassionate. And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful in the fire service, we lose our compassion, and we don't get mad, at that person, because you may be all they have right now. So.
And that may be you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope I didn't.
No, dude,
you were terrible.
Randomly say stupid crap that
got off. We're probably not even going to publish this episode.
Well, if you just leave the video out, that'd be fine.
Oh,
you got a face for radio, buddy.
Oh yeah, sure do.
And a voice for silent movies.
Man, you guys know me so well.
Well, that's just a saying I say about myself. So, well, Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show, man. It was an absolute privilege. Glad you can make it. James, yeah, thanks for showing up.
Definitely my privilege. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Yeah, if you're struggling reach out. There are resources out there. If you know somebody that's struggling, reach out, let them know you care, let them know what resources are out there. Hey, don't be afraid to drop us a line either. You know, the email's up on every episode. So I get it on my phone even. I'm that high tech. So
Do you check it?
I do.
Okay.
I have no choice but to check it. It dings at me. So, yeah, look, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.